this was indeed an attack on God. But how like this? I'm going to go ahead and start you off with something. Imagine that you want to make something better, even better than it was. What you can do, you can actually, improve it. Like you have a car, you want to make it better. You add a paint job to it. You add better tires to it. You can add more legs to it. So what happens in this story? What happens? You have this scenario where you are faced with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I wasn't sure how I was going to first couple minutes of it because of the lady at the movie theater was haggling us about like what we had in our juice bottles and stuff, and all we had was water, and so they were pretty much we got hit at the checkout. So that. And then she gets the wrong theater, so she put us in the 3D theater. So I was just like, "Hey, this is really cool." We went to the matinee, and it was a 3D theater. But for the points, what I'm going to talk about into why I think Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was an attack on God. Number one, you have it where first and foremost saying there is no God in the picture. They admit it in the beginning. There is no God in it, and what they say is that he left everything, and we are there to the High Evolutionary says that this is going to be pretty much a spoiler alert, spoiler type review. So he says that High Evolutionary says that there is no God, and I'm here to do the job. And he's terrible. But like that doesn't answer the question of God. Actually, and opens up a whole philosophy of as to who put it there and why are you messing with it, kind of a thing. Because that's kind of the whole gist of the entire movie. Is why you're messing with what God has already made. So I was attacking God. Number one, the High Evolutionary. He did some number one. That was number two. Number two, the High Evolution did some ghastly things to people under his guidance, under his rule. He was a bad dude, and it's really like a bad dude in the lead. Like this movie reminded me of Serenity, Serenity from with Firefly and the movie Serenity because I saw actually Serenity first, and being able to see them our boy Nathan Fillion up in Serenity. And then also seeing him in this movie Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3, that was really cool to see. I follow him now on Instagram because he's such a cool dude. Anyway, for the most part, though, I watched him in Castle. I didn't watch much of the Rookie. Sorry, but Castle, I watched all seasons of the Castle, all the things of Firefly. Didn't watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer and all that stuff. Anyway, but go back to what I'm saying. The High Evolutionary did a lot of ghastly things, and how it was. This movie reminded me of Serenity because it was like this point number point number three. Serenity in that they had the packs, and then that thing with the packs of people poisoning the air, trying to make the air better. In essence, they created the Reavers, and they also created the poisoned. They kill half the population. So, and happening in this movie, there was the thing where Serenity, and they had a thing where they're trying to play God. They're trying to remove a world, like they said in Serenity, a world without sin. And so to have a world without sin, they definitely they first have a world without God. Then now they're trying to have a world without sin. And so the thing is, and then you look at the scenario how it all works out. The guy he's trying to make a perfect world, but he's like a rambunctious kind of crazy person that doesn't make any kind of sense. So, what's the point of him making something and something so awesome and then wanting to kill it? I never, I mean, we watched, okay, this movie and as soon as those little creatures came up on stage, I mean, my eyes started cheering up, man. I had my 3D goggles on, everything like that. My eyes started cheering up. I started like beeping, man, because I'm like, oh my goodness, I know what's gonna happen. The whole story about Rocket, and they had to break him and make him and remake him and all that stuff, and his body, and how his body's, all these different things, and how that's such a terrible thing to even think about, and what they had to do in order to make him into the character that he is. And so what happens is that you see all the other animals that they have there, and they're pulling on your heartstrings, man. The movie was fun. I have to give it to you. The movie was a fun movie to watch. I really liked it actually. But the thing was like what got me was that I could see clearly like whenever there's a movie, you can see what they're attacking and how they can how they could try and make a on God as well as on creation. And they always show you a little something about the elites have in mind. So number one, it was pretty much there was no God in the picture. So that's actually point four. I'll just go through what I have here as a list. Okay, number one, the high evolutionary, the gas things to the purpose, to the people that were under his guidance and under his rule. Number two, remind me of Serenity, and the whole thing with the packs and how the packs was like very much like a thing they used in order to try and population control and population remove aggressiveness. Three, you wanted to help everything in this movie. You wanted to help everything in this movie. Everybody in this movie you wanted to help. You wanted to help even the higher evolutionary. You wanted to help him out because you're looking at his struggle, and he wanted something at one point that was noble, and he became like a soulless character. I don't know. He just had no problem killing stuff. He's like that dude in Ant Man who was just like blowing up sheep, making sheep explode. That's one. The next one is that the way that they made the movie leaves God out of all of it, and God made everything perfect. Number five, God made everything perfect, and so when you have God in the situation, He made everything perfect and made it well. And so the thing is, like, what happens is like you have it where um you have it where I'm pretty much my wife and kids are gonna come in, so I'm gonna turn the camera so they can like do their thing, and so I'm just gonna pretty much gonna talk over here. So anyway, so what happens is this, right? We have God made everything perfect. The scientists are what they're doing. They're hijacking what God has already made. The real God, the high creator of the world, has already made. And what they're trying to do is that they're trying to make it into something that is better for society. Like they make something with a Terminator seed, or make something that's something that's a Terminator seed, or something that's gonna last for industry, not gonna last for industry. So what ends up happening is that you are faced with a scenario where um you're faced with a scenario where everything is messed up, because what they're doing is that they're messing with God's perfect plan, God's perfect perfection. So you have that scenario right there, and so what happens is that that's one in the movie. When I was looking at the movie, everybody in the movie died at one point or has deathly injuries. And it was like, for example, you have like Star Lord, he gets frozen to death, but he doesn't die. Now Nebula gets like broken into pieces, and she doesn't die. Mantis gets her neck broken, and she doesn't die. Drax gets shot in the chest, in the front, and the back. He goes down, he doesn't die. Rocket actually flatlines, and they bring him back. And then you have what else? What else is there? Gamora. The relationship between Gamora and Star Lord with Quill. What happens is that they don't their relationship is dead, right? And then one of the things I thought about in the movie was like interesting was that they has a part where they really get your heart. They really get your heart like on the animals, and you get to feel so sad because you have like a thing with the bunny rabbits, right? And then the poor bunny rabbit is like, you just feel sad because they give like all these spider legs to a bunny rabbit, and you got a walrus. You got a walrus. Look, yeah, I'm making a video, honey. They're making a virus. No, not a virus. You're making there's a walrus with wheels, and you got like a sea otter, like a river sea otter with no legs, no front legs, and all that. And so what happens is that they did some crazy stuff, man, to these animals, and then you really had your heartstrings tug. But then you have the whole thing where they blew up an entire planet of these docile, non-aggressive space creatures that are half animals, half human, anthropomorphic. I mean, they kill the whole planet, and they don't even they're like, oh snap, we gotta save Rocket, kind of thing, and they totally don't even think about the animals, and how they're all put together. So when I look at that, I say to myself, oh my goodness, they kind of really missed the point there. They had an opportunity to kind of show the importance of all life, but then when it ends up going is you have the high evolutionary. He's got some kind of problem. He's got issues. And you have the go to save the children, which I think is really cool. They save all the kids, and they show that part, saving the little blonde little kids and stuff like that. Save them and put them to a new planet. They save all the animals. They didn't save the half animals, half people. And pretty much, it was one of those things that you just kind of, the more you look at it, the more you start thinking, hey, this is a very interesting subject. I I'm gonna bring to you again the points and when God made everything perfect. He didn't make anything with a mistake in it. But when sin entered the world, Adam and Eve, when they sinned, they brought death into the world. I mean, every character in this movie died. Every character in this movie had some kind of a weird death, but then they all came back to life, in various ways. And then the last part that I thought was just kind of interesting was that they tried their best to remove God out of the picture, but then they showed how awesome God's creation actually is, and how when people go to mess with it, it's actually one of those bad situations, like the elites. They go and they mess with it. Instead of things happening naturally and people have a normal relationship, they go and they throw all kind of crazy things into the mix to make people crazy. So I just want to say those couple things. I'm not going to make a long video today, but overall, I like the Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought it was an attack on God in terms of like the way they try to remove God out of the equation, but then realize that the way God makes things better than how man makes things, or how even a high evolutionary who's a crazy person makes things. And I think they were trying to associate him with the God of the Old Testament or something, or trying to move him and how God isn't merciful and all that, and able to destroy or flood a whole planet. So in this one, they burn up a whole planet. So I'm just like looking at that, and it says, you know what? Those people in the situation, they were victims, right? As opposed to Adam and Eve not being a victim, they chose to sin against God. And when they chose sin against God, they put all of us into the death thing. And so when Jesus died on the cross for our sins, Jesus gave us new life. So we have an everlasting life, not based upon our good works or good deeds or deserving it, but because Jesus died on the cross for our sins, and He took our wrath, the sin that we did against God. Jesus paid for it for us on the cross. So anyway, so I just want to say that the movie, it wasn't woke. That's one thing too. It wasn't woke. It didn't have any of the message or the agenda like like some of the people like to say. They didn't have any of the message or agenda in it. The only thing they had was they had like brothers and sister kind of fighting kind of thing. They had like people wanted to find themselves. There's a part where Quinn kind of goes Quill goes back and he makes peace with his family, and that's actually pretty cool. There's a lot of parts where they go in. I didn't like when Chris Pratt cursed in the movie. There was no need for that, and there's really no need for any of the curses in the movie. I mean, just point blank, there's no need for any of the curses. But I mean, at least they didn't curse God in the movie this time. Usually they always put like some kind of GD in it, and cursing God in the movie. In time, they just said that God doesn't exist. They just went to that whole route. So for the most part, though, I just look at that and I say they tried to make a world without God, and they show how bad it is, and how when you leave it to a person that's a sinner to try and make a world, you're gonna have even a worse world because now you're gonna torture innocent things that are supposed to be innocent, and you give them nothing but trouble. So let God be God, let God be God, let people be people. But for the most part, though, that's kind of the situation there. So I just want to say that's all I have for now. I want to say God bless you, and I'll talk to you soon. All right. So that's all I have to say right now. I'll have more of a better review, probably with my family or something coming up. But also I'll talk to you about the Mantis and things as well. All right. Peace and God bless, and God bless you. All right. So if you get a chance to see the movie, let me know how you think. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and have a good day. All right. Bye.